Weapon reskins in TF2 have always seemed like a strange case to me. On one hand, if you like how a weapon works but hate how it looks, it's nice to have another option to choose from. But on the other hand, not every reskin is necessarily better than the weapon it's replacing, so sometimes there's no point in even using them. Okay, sorry, couldn't resist starting a video like that. Yeah, so with weapon reskins becoming sort of a meme on my channel for some reason, what better way to end the year than giving a comprehensive breakdown of all the reskins in the game? And by that I mean just telling you which ones I think are the best, because there's not really much to objectively break down that I haven't in another video already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every reskin in the game, compare it to its counterpart, and pick which version I think is better. At the end, I'll tally up how many times the reskins won versus the normal versions, and that way we can definitively decide whether weapon reskins are better than stock. As for how I'm going to handle war paints and festives and whatnot, I'm lumping those under the normal weapon category instead of counting them as their own type of reskin. You might think that would tip the balance in favor of the stock weapons significantly, but trust me when I say they need all the help they can get. And last thing before I begin, I feel the need to reiterate that this is just my opinion and the points are more for fun instead of being super serious. I would still love to hear your opinions in the comments if you disagree, but there's no reason to get mad at mine. Okay, let's go. Starting off with Scout, there are 6 reskins to look at. The Luger Morph, Capper, Mutated Milk, Bat Saber, Unarmed Combat, and 3-Rune Blade are all functional replacements to an otherwise identical weapon. So let's start with the easy choices and work our way down. Unsurprisingly, the Bat Saber is the clear-cut winner over the Bat. I mean, come on, it's a literal lightsaber. Why wouldn't you use this thing? Ah, yeah, that's why. The main thing going against the Bat Saber is that it is dummy expensive, quintuply so if you want a strange version, but honestly, I feel like you're getting what you pay for here. The 3-Rune Blade also wins pretty handily over the Boston Basher, considering that I am a sucker for swords and this thing looks sick. The lack of a strange version is a pretty apparent issue for me though, since in most cases I do refuse to use a weapon if it isn't strange. But considering that I rarely use the Boston Basher to get actual kills, I'm definitely willing to make an exception here and declare the 3-Rune the victor. The Holy Mackerel versus the Unarmed Combat was pretty difficult because both of the weapons are pretty goofy in their own respects, but I think on an empirical goofiness scale, the concept of beating someone with a fish slightly edges out beating him with a disembodied arm. Apparently they're both against the law, but one of them gets you put into a lengthy police interrogation while the other's an open and shut case that only comes with several $1,000s in fines. So because I'm never getting those 12 hours back from the interrogators, I'll give this point to the Mackerel. The Mad Milk versus the Mutated Milk is a bit unfair, considering that one of them is actually objectively better than the other. If you've watched my videos before, specifically this one, you know exactly which one it is. If not, I would recommend doing so for a better explanation, but the long short of it is that the bread throwables actually travel slightly farther than the normal versions. But pay to win aside, the Mutated Milk can also do this. So it gets the point either way. And finally, Scout has one of the weapons with 2 different reskins, making the choice between 3 total weapons. The Luger Morph and the Capper are both reskins of the pistol, making what is potentially the best set of reskin options in the entire game. All of these weapons are incredibly nice looking. Even the pistol, which would arguably be the weakest out of the 3, has numerous war paints that really add to the look. This was a difficult decision to make that would probably vary based on the day that I made it, but as of right now, I personally think that the Capper just feels the best to use. The laser beams are functionally identical to bullets, but they just feel better somehow? It's hard to explain, but out of all the 3 pistols, the Capper is where I'm placing my vote. So, ending Scout, that's 1 point for the normal weapons and 4 points for the reskins. Soldier only has half a reskin, so we don't count it here. Now hold on, I know what you're thinking. A reskin is a reskin, you can't say it's only a half. Well, TJ Heavy Yoshi, hear me out. A reskin is a weapon that's completely identical to the item it's replacing in every way but the model. While I'm willing to make exceptions for the bread jar since the differences are extremely minimal, the original has a mechanic that definitively separates it from the stock rocket launcher in higher level play. Even though every other stat is the same, the fact that the rocket comes from the center of the screen changes enough about your playstyle that we call it half of a reskin. So yeah, I'm gonna skip this one. Pyro has up to 5 reskins depending on how we want to handle Pyro land. Personally, I think I was wrong to exclude these from my original weapon reskins video, since unlike the original, the only changes to them are visual. So that means that the flamethrower slot is a 3-way competition between stock, the Rainblower, and the Nostromo Napalmer, which makes things very tricky because all 3 have attributes that I really like. The main benefit of stock is that on top of having readily available strange versions, its extra variants like Festives and Australiums are super nice looking. I'm particularly fond of the earlier decorated skins, specifically the Balloonicorn and the Warhawk. On the other hand, the Rainblower does have nice attributes like an included taunt kill, RGB gamer flames, and neat visual effects effects if you're not playing on 2 fort. Seriously, what the hell were they thinking? But on the third hand that I grew from nuclear waste exposure, the Nostromo Napalmer is one of the coolest looking reskins in the entire game. I know it doesn't really mesh with the game's art style perfectly, but like, just look at it. So even though the decision was tough, I'm going to say that my favorite flamethrower version all around is stock. If the Nostromo Napalmer had a strange version, then it would easily be that one, but unfortunately, I can't justify using a weapon that doesn't track my life's work. And also the skins carry stock. Seriously, I love some of the paints available for it. The Fire Axe versus the Lollipop is interesting, because why would I bother using either of them? But if I had to pick, it would probably be the Fire Axe, mainly because it has a kind of neat looking festivized version. The Maul versus the Home Wrecker is a bit complicated, because while the Maul's lack of a strange variant doesn't matter for combat, it does mean you can't use it to track how many sappers you've smashed. If I use this weapon more, I'm sure that would bother me, but considering this rarely makes it into my loadouts, the Maul gets the point. And finally, the Extinguisher versus the Postal Pummeler is an easy point for the Extinguisher. While I do like the creativity of the mailbox theme, the Extinguisher just looks so cool. And also it has a bunch of variants that can all be strange, where the Postal Pummeler has none, so yeah, this one isn't even close. Demoman throws 4 more reskins into the hat, none of which come with strange versions. Goody. At least in the case of the bootlegger, there isn't really anything that tracks, and not having a strange option is really the least of our concerns. So between it and the wee booties, I'd say the bootlegger looks better and is therefore my preferred boot option. The Scottish Handshake is another reskin that looks absolutely amazing, but is personally killed by the lack of kill tracking. Please, dear God, Valve, make Universal Strange of Fires a thing already. Last up for demo, the Eyelander is another case where a single weapon has 2 different reskins, both of which look great in their own right. Between the 3 head-collecting swords, I'd say that the 9 Iron is the weakest conceptually, although it does get the bonus points for blocking the least amount of screen real estate. I really want to like the Horseless Headless Horseman's head taker, but due to your view model looking like this, I really can't stand using it. It's such an interesting design for a weapon that has unique sounds and looks super intimidating, but the fact that it turns TF2 into an accurate Demoman simulator by blocking half of your vision is just too much for me. So by default, this one goes to the Eyelander, doubly so considering how nice the festive version looks. Moving on to Heavy, there are quite a few reskins to look at. Because I don't often play this class, I'll try to speed through them. Now between the Iron Curtain and the minigun, you probably know what I'm going to say because the Iron Curtain can't be strange. However, I actually play Heavy so infrequently that not tracking minigun kills really doesn't bother me too much. The Iron Curtain is super nice looking with its wooden trim and sharp angles, so I'll throw this point in the reskin direction. The Robo Sandwich is an insanely cool item that I'm sure would be an absolute joy to use, but yeah, this one's going to stock on principle. The Delico's bar versus the fish cake is somewhat even because I really don't care about strange food items, but honestly I prefer the look of the chocolate bar more, so the Delico's wins here. The fists overall aren't an amazing weapon considering the incredibly powerful side grade options you have access to, but dear God, I would be lying if I said the Apoco fist didn't make me want to use them more. They really went above and beyond with these things, making people explode on crit kills, making the model super detailed, and even letting him keep the default taunt kill even though it visually doesn't make any sense is wonderful, so these easily sweep the point for heavy stock melee. And last up, the Gloves of Running Urgently versus the Bread Bite is not very close, honestly. The Bread Bite is such a unique looking weapon with some of the most intricate animations for any weapon in the entire game, and all the default Gru has going for it is that the festive version is slightly to moderately cool looking. So, the Bread Boys take another dub. Engineer has a single reskin in the Geiger counter, which on top of having a widely debated pronunciation is an absolutely sick looking weapon. The only thing I don't like about it is this beam of light coming out of the front, mainly because it looks weird in certain lighting environments, but outside of that, it's not even close. The Geiger counter handily beats the Wrangler. Technically, Engineer has a second weapon that's considered a reskin, but like, come on now. This is a glorified Australian that you've not been able to obtain since Rebecca Black was popular. Why would I even bother counting this one? Medic has 0 reskins, apparently, so moving on to Sniper gives us a wider selection to choose from. First up, there are 2 bow and arrows for your picking. The Huntsman, which has strange and festive versions, and the Fortified Compound, which does not. Take a wild guess as to which one I prefer. The Fortified Compound not having a strange really sucks though, because I do slightly prefer its look compared to the default Huntsman, but being able to track stuff like taunt kills, headshots, and other goofy metrics is super nice to have on a bow. So once again, the Strange Dilemma kills yet another otherwise great reskin. Rest in peace. The Sniper Rifle versus the Opera Hand is a super tough decision, because while I certainly adore the look and feel of the Op, the Sniper Rifle has a ton of really good warpaints to choose from. While I mainly use the stock Sniper Rifle, I'd say that between the two, the Op is actually actually my preferred choice. The only reason I refuse to switch now is cost-sunk fallacy, because apparently you can't transfer strange kills between reskins. Why? The self-aware beauty mark is better than the Girardi for similar reasons as the mutated milk, so I won't repeat myself here, but I will at least note that the festive Girardi did make it a pretty close contender. And finally, the Machina and the Shooting Star is yet another competition that is absurdly hard to judge because both weapons look amazing. Ironically though, I think that the Shooting Star actually fits the game's art style better, mainly because it's stylized around what was considered futuristic at the time rather than what's considered futuristic now. While this doesn't normally impact my decisions a whole lot, the Shooting Star is just way too good to pass up, mainly because of this. And with that, the Invasion reskins sweep with a perfect score. You know, I think I might have a type. And ending off the list of classes with Spy, we have 8 entire reskins to rank, good lord almighty. Why do they feel the need to add this many for Spy and Spy only? Well, regardless, they ain't gonna rate themselves, so let's plow through them. The Revolver versus the Big Kill goes to the Revolver, and not only for the reason you'd expect. The look and feel of the stock Revolver is actually quite nice, but what really tips it over the edge for me is the festive version. Just look at this handle. Perfection. The Eternal Reward versus the Wang Prick also goes in favor of the default version because once again, I feel like they just got it right on the first try. The Eternal Reward is one of my favorite looking melees in the entire game, and I can't imagine why they thought that this was the one that needed a reskin the most. Every other Spy reskin from here on out comes in groups of 3. Why would they do this instead of distributing them more? I have no idea, but it makes the decision just that much harder. The Knife, Sharp Dresser, and Black Rose are 3 amazing looking weapons, and much like the pistols, my opinion on which one is the best changes rather frequently. The stock knife is probably the weakest on its own, but it's boosted by it having one of the best patterns for paints to map onto, so its alternative versions end up looking incredible. The Sharp Dresser has very satisfying animations and sounds, and is overall one of my favorite reskins conceptually, and the Black Rose takes everything that I like about the stock knife and ramps it up to 11, coming with 2 great looking styles to boot. The reskins don't have strange versions, but in this instance, I don't really think it matters, because the Black Rose is one of my favorite reskins in the entire game. Seriously, the model and styles for this are both beautiful, and I feel bad for anyone who wasn't able to get it for free when Arma was still online. The Sappers also have a nice triplet of options, though I'm not sure they quite live up to the same hype as the knives. Between stock, the Snack Attack, and the App Sap, only a single one fills me with joy as I deploy it and have it talk my ear off. Even though it's louder than my parents divorcing in the background of a video I made in 2011, the App Sap is a lot of fun to listen to and a great nod to the Portal series. And last but indeterminately least, the stock Cloak Watch has its competition in the form of Tycho's Timepiece and the Quackenbert. While I do like Pac-Man and rectangles, I mean, this one has a duck on it, and I like ducks even more than Pac-Man and rectangles, so yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Quackenbert. So that's all the... Oh, wait, hold on, I'm getting a message. What's that? There's an untapped pool of reskins we've yet to examine. Yeah, the stock melee reskins are a thing, and quite a few of them too. Because it would be difficult to compare every single stock melee reskin to every single stock melee, I'm just going to rank each of them in their own category to keep things easy. In order from worst to best, there's the Crossing Guard because it's forgettable, the Memory Maker because it's also forgettable but slightly cooler, the Freedom Staff because it's also forgettable but it has a bird on it and I'm biased towards those, the Bat Outta Hell because it's boring but has funny jiggle bones, the Printy Machete because it's all class, the Necro Smasher because it's also all class but is slightly more thematic, and the Conscientious Objector because the concept of allowing anyone to upload any image they want onto a weapon is objectively hilarious and I'm tired of pretending it's not. So it's all come down to the ham in the pan, definitely widely used but for good reason, and between the two, I'd say that the best all-class melee reskin is the ham, because I love beating my meat. I mean beating people with my meat. So the final score of the 2022 Reskin Olympics is 10 points for the stock weapons and 17 points for the reskins, with the Hamshank being the judge, I guess. And thus, that concludes my thesis of why weapon reskins in TF2 have always seemed like a strange case to me. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Hopefully my gift of a fan service video is sufficient. As much as weapon reskins has become a meme for whatever reason, I really do like the concept of them. Being able to have a single set of stats that looks like many different things is a nice touch for the game to have, and overall I think TF2 handles it tactfully. Again, I just wish the TF2 had a universal Strangifier so we can finally get Stranges for all the reskins that don't have them already. Or hell, even just a dedicated crate only containing strange versions of reskins. The sky's really the limit here. But even though that's probably never going to happen, a bird can dream, and he can also encourage all of his subscribers to send emails to Valve. So anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for all the growth this year, it's meant a lot, and hopefully next year will be just as great, if not better. Okay, bye.